Yes. Policy number 3.1, the board causes policy to be developed and adopted based upon the best knowledge, research available, and superintendent's counsel. Each trustee adheres to and supports adopted policies until altered.
Thank you. Public participation process. Members of the audience are welcome to make comments at the time designated on the agenda. Please register on the sign-up sheet and limit your comments to 3 minutes when your name is called. Out of respect for all individuals, please refrain from personal criticism in open forum. Policy 167. What have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Liz, support by Pam. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. The motion passed. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion. Oh, go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Any discussion, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion, the consent agenda passed. Dr. Cooper, educational highlights.
Yeah, we're struggling right now getting the presentation up. We have our, some representatives here who went on the trip to Spain that they want to share with us. Ms. Culp, you want to come up and just start with, use your phone to kind of talk through it, and then we'll put it on the board when we can.
I got my MacBook, they didn't.
Oh, your MacBook?
I have to look through it, but.
I'm not sure why this is not connecting.
It's this source, but sometimes I have to unplug back in or.
Maybe just
Let me
swap
just
it.
Is it
Oh, yeah.
working?
I don't know if it,
Oh, you
do
don't have
you,
to do that.
I don't think so, do you guys have the USB-C adapter for it?
Probably not. Not that fancy.
Just have that.
Sorry,
stuff.
sorry.
Can't hang with that
I'm sorry,
computer
I'm
stuff.
sorry.
Nice stuff.
Alright, so this is.
That's all I know about
Yeah,
it.
that'll work.
This is our beginning of our presentation, so I brought two
That's funny.
students that went with us to talk about our trip. So we started out, obviously this is right before we left, so we were just getting ready to get on the bus to go to Chicago.
This is sort of this was the main like city that we played while we were in Spain.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
With most families. Here's more Burgos. That's a paella that Mrs. Stalzer and I got to make with one of the teachers and her mom. She like pulled out this huge pan and we got to sit there and put all the pieces in, cut all the stuff up. It was amazing. It's my favorite food in Spain, so
Do you mind
super
also
excited.
just kind of glimpse it by them?
Great.
I don't know if they see that.
Here, that's the beginning. Oh, then pictures of Burgos. Right. Here we go. And then,
That was Santa Fe where we went for half a day.
oh, it was a full day. It was a full day. So it was like a 2-hour drive. It was on the coast. So they got to go to the beach. It was 95 that day. It was really hot and we had a lot of fun at the beach and got burned. A lot of them. A lot of them got sunburned because some of them did not wear sunscreen like they were told. So this is more Santander. They have a little sign that we like all gathered around and took a nice picture. And then some of the coastal ways that we walked. Yeah, it's really, really pretty. This is the CarX. So it's hard to explain, but like real close to Burgos is where they found a lot of a huge historical site in Atapuerca, where they found a lot about human evolution. They have a human evolution museum in Burgos. And so this is a place where they got to go and experience what it was like to be like a cave person and how they made their paints, how they made sounds, how they, began to hunt, like what kind of like rock they made and how they made it. They actually got to try to make, like cut the silex is what they called it, to do that. And so that was really cool. So this is Noah trying to use a bow and arrow. Yeah. And some of the kids got to throw like a spear, but not a really like dangerous spear, so that's cool. So yeah, that was the Cardex. And then,
So this is like, it was like a trail between two mountains.
It was really cool.
Like into, in the environment.
so it's like a paved trail that you can go in between. There's water flowing below it and birds and everything. It's really, really cool. Here's the last one I missed. That's the Cardex. It stands for something, but I can't remember what it is. And then this is the main cathedral in Burgos. It's beautiful. It's very large. It's the third largest in all of Spain. So it's pretty cool. That's called the Golden Stairs, special stairs, and this is just a big altar piece. It's all wood and really gold. So it's all like gold piece on top of it. It's so impressive. We had a guided tour of it. One of the teacher's friends gave us a free tour of the place, so that was really nice. And then we went bowling. So before we left Burgos and left our host families, they threw us a party and said, hey, let's go bowling. So we got to go bowling, and then, so all the kids were bowling, and then afterward we got to eat down in the basement all together, so that's a nice picture of everybody. In case you want to see.
Now you gotta start over from the beginning, because I think we're gonna get,
Oh, you gonna get it now?
I'm trying. What was there? What happened to it, Troy?
Oh, I don't know. It was great.
I didn't do it. And then we went to, Ellison, where'd we go? Segovia, which is my favorite place. I actually studied there in Spain, so I know a lot about Segovia. I know where to go and how to do things and some of the history, so it was kind of cool. This is a picture of the city from up on top of the castle that's on the other side of the city. And this happens to be one of the largest Roman aqueducts still working. And there's no border holding any of those plugs. Those are all there, positioned perfectly to stay that way. So it's pretty cool. It's one of my favorite things. I have hundreds of pictures of the aqueduct from when I studied.
It disappeared.
I lived right down the street, so morning and night, it's perfect. This is on top of the castle, where we took a picture. Because we all paid an extra amount to go up. Oh, you got it. Woo, all right.
But it
Look
seems
at
to
that.
keep disappearing every time I touch it.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there we
So
go.
yeah,
Where we, oh. disappeared
uh-oh. I spoke too soon.
again. No,
I'm sorry.
no, I don't know why it's doing that.
Keep the changes. Keep them, yep, then we should be good.
Okay. So
Okay.
that was, again, Santander, much bigger, easier for you guys to see. And then,
Here's the remote.
oh,
You go up, you go back, just up there, go down
that was the Cardex. La Yecla, so we walked on that path. Cathedral. I don't know. There we go. This is our goodbye before we left. And there's Segovia. And then the cathedral that's the cathedral right there. And that's a view from the castle on the other side of town. And it's like the cathedral's in between the aqueduct and the castle. So it's kind of cool. And there's everybody.
Good looking group.
And then,
We stayed in Madrid for our last 2 days.
so this is in front of where?
The hotel that we stayed in.
Yeah. Which was really, really nice. And then this was what we did?
That was dinner.
That was our really good yummy dinner at an Italian restaurant, because everybody was kind of like, we need some different kind of food. So we went Italian that day.
Pasta was bad.
And then this is in Madrid when we spent our full day. Some groups went one way and some went another. Almost everybody got to see the kilometer zero, which is the point in Spain that everything is measured from. So it starts there and then they measure out from that point in Spain, which is kind of in the center. Allison, your group and Noah's group went with me. Where did we go?
We went with the
We went to the flamenco show. Oh, never mind, just kidding. That's right, where you went with me. So I took a group of kids to the bull ring, and we did a tour of the bull ring. We didn't see a bullfight, but we did a tour and got to go through it and see what it looks like and kind of learn some history because we had an audio guide and everything. And that's the statue at the bull ring. And then of course Allison and Noah went to a flamenco show instead. So we gave them a choice, one or the other. They went to the flamenco show, and then this is them at the Templo de Boat, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it. Yep. That's it. So we just wanted to say, actually there should be another one. Why is it not? Maybe it disappeared. It was just a slide that said thank you so much for allowing us to be able to take this trip and do education on location, which was really the best way to learn a language, is to go and learn and have that experience and have that native speaker tell you when you're making a mistake, so you fix it right away. And it's different than when Miss Culp tells you. It's totally different when a kid your age is like, no, that's not how we say that. We say it this way. So it was a very cool experience, and we had a great time. So thank you so much for letting us go.
When you want to go back again?
In 2 years.
2 years, go back again?
Yep, because the Spaniards are actually coming here. They'll be arriving in August on the 28th. So they'll be here right around school starting. We'll try to get them to a football game. We'll go with them to Chicago. They'll go on a half-day trip to Saugatuck Dunes and ride the dunes. And then whatever the families want to do, like before, we've coordinated it with families where we all go to a Whitecaps game, because they don't really have baseball there. So we've taken them to Detroit before instead of Chicago, but they prefer Chicago because baseball's just not that exciting. But at least the Whitecaps is really fun because there's always stuff in between the innings, which is really fun for the kids if they get to do that too. So that's kind of the plan when they come. And they'll be staying with our kids that stayed with them for the most part when they come back.
That's great.
So how long were you there?
We were there, we left on the 31st, so we arrived on April 1st, and then we came home on the 12th. So we were there almost 12 days. And we had to leave a day early. I don't know if you guys knew, because a month before we left, they emailed me and said, your flight's canceled. I was like, wait, what? And they said, well, we can give you the same flight if you leave a day earlier. Otherwise, we're gonna go through here and there and then Madrid, and I was like, no, we don't wanna do that. So I talked to Mrs. Murphy and Dr. Cooper and said, hey, is it, I know we asked for a couple days before or after, is that okay? And he said, yeah, that's totally fine, we don't need to do that anymore.
How long are the students from Spain staying?
They're arriving on the 28th, and they'll be here until the 9th, I believe. So another amount of days, yeah. So they'll be here for the Labor Day weekend, and so it'll be fun stuff because a lot of families go camping and go other places. I might take the teacher that's staying with me up to Natural Island as something different. Yeah, so that'll be fun for them. Yeah, and they love our beaches. They can't believe that it's fresh water. It's so warm when they come. It's great. And then we'll try to get them all to a football game to experience what an American football game is, because that's a big deal too. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For sharing.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sorry for the rough start.
It's okay. It's okay.
Operator error.
Little public comment. Bonnie, Alan.
I have in the past mentioned or requested that there be a little bit more disclosure to the public, and there may be, so just bear with me about this, because I'm not sure. About backdrop of things that I maybe don't wrap my brain around, but if there was more public access to some information, maybe read through whether it be budget stuff or whatever. I do see on here the resolution for truth and taxation, so that's probably a step. But what I was thinking about was the ISD budget and the pending budget, because I know that there's a transparency page for the current budget, but I don't know if there's any access by the public to look at what's in the works for the ISD budget, and I feel like that would be useful to have if there is a place to find that. And I probably should have emailed Garth before I got thinking about it, so, anyway, just, another request for that kind of stuff, and I don't even know what to ask for sometimes, because, like, this to me is something that's obviously on the calendar annually, that a person, and I just, I mean, I'm glad Christmas is always on the same day, because I remember that, so I'm not the best, like, at keeping track of everything, but, it is something that, it'd be good to have. Anyway, that's all, thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie.
And I meant to say Dr. Cooper, not Garth.
That's fine. I answered the board.
That's all that is on the list. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a public comment at this time? Then we will move on to committee reports. Let's see. No, let's see. Dr. Cooper, superintendent's report.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of things to go through today. You see there's a lot of dates, you can tell it's the end of the year. We got art shows coming up and choir concerts, 8th grade awards on Friday. Next Monday is our senior honors convocation, that's always a very nice time. And then, of course, don't forget graduation on May 21st. If you can't be there, please let us know. Board members, please arrive about 6:30. And then our next meeting is on June the 8th. Board policy updates. This is everybody's favorite part of the year. So these are the proposed updates from Neola. Reminder, today is just the first reading. We will come back to these again in a month for the second reading and for approval. I'm going to go through the ones that I sent you already or that you have attached and kind of get a little snippet about what's going on there. So policy 0100 is definitions, and the only change there is that the new law about cell phone use, they changed a little bit of the language and definition on what actually is what they call wireless communication device. So it's just a definition change. Policy 1410. So policy 1410 is the same as policy 3210, which is our staff ethics page, and I think that what happened is they found that we have different sections of our handbook. The thousands are for administrators, 3,000s are for professional staff, and 4,000s are for support staff. And so they felt like that policy should be in every section, so 1410 is basically 3210 all over again. And please, if you have questions, go ahead and stop me, that would be great. 2418, these are updates to the sex ed standards. You can see the words in green that they included. You can see there's some language in red that they took out. As I mentioned in my update, there's some language here that we've omitted from other policy that I just went ahead and omitted here, assuming we want to do the same. There's nothing here again that any kind of directive or anything that speaks to what our sex ed has to be. As Liz knows, our CAB would be determining if there was any changes, and we're not predicting any changes to the sex ed curriculum. This is just policy language related to the changes in the law. And of course, they don't want us to use sexually transmitted disease anymore. It's now a sexually transmitted infection. Doesn't sound any less awful, but okay. Yeah.
So I'll try, it says the Sex Education Advisory Board shall, and it's under letter A, just so everyone, if people need to find it. There is a line crossed out that says additional program goals and objectives may be established by the Sex Education Advisory Board that are not contrary to Michigan law. That language is stricken in the update, and I am questioning if there's a reason, and just from the Sex Ed Advisory Board, I would like to retain that right if there is something, another objective they would like to bring forward, because they do review a lot of that, like health education, and sometimes they do have some recommendations. It almost reads like they wouldn't be able to bring that forward.
I can double check on that for you. My guess is when it doesn't speak to it specifically, you have the freedom to make the choice you want to make.
I'm gonna double check that.
Yeah, and I will definitely double check.
Thank you.
One of the questions that I had, because we spent quite a bit of time, talking about, in a previous meeting, removing the language, gender identity, sexual orientation, sort of that prescriptive language that existed in our policies outside federal and state law. And Garth, I talked to you about it, and I thought you went back to Neola and they went through the policies and advised us that that language had been removed from all sections.
We removed it from our sections. This is what they provide to all of their clients, and most schools are leaving that language in.
But it still existed it still exists in the policy today, correct?
On our policy?
Yes.
Shouldn't. I
So why is it lined through in this policy as if it currently exists and that's removed?
Good question, that's a good one. So they assume that all districts took their policy. So when we alter, whenever these come in, we have to overlay it with our current policy. And so, this does not align with our policy, so that's why I struck it out to make sure it would align. But that's, so everybody gets the same policy, the same language. Most schools just adopt it as it comes in, kind of like we'll adopt some of these just as they came in. So when there's an update, they will send it out again as if everybody adopted the old policy. But that's why I have to make sure I overlay it against our policy, so if we made any local changes, we have to make those local changes again.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that process look like with Neola? Is there any context to the changes that they're suggesting, or do they just send an email and say, here's what we recommend, and it's sort of your responsibility then to do that audit?
No, that's a good question. So, they send out the update, gives superintendents about a month to go through them. Not that it takes that long, which who knows, we never have a chance to get to it. And then they have a rep. Ours happens to be Ann Carden, who's a former superintendent. And Ann comes out and sits with us. I asked Troy to always sit in with me as well. The other good thing is that in the interim, before she comes out to meet with us, like there was a policy in here about technology, so I give that to Mr. Malden, our technology director, and say, how does this fit with what we do? There's a policy in here about special education transportation, so I give that to Mr. Hart, who's our special ed director. So they have a chance to give me feedback before I meet with Ann. And then Ann comes in and she talks about what their suggestions are and why they are. Like maybe there was a court case, maybe there was new legislation, or like I said with the staff ethics where they want to split it up so it's in 3 different sections. And we go through that, and then if there are places where there's options, we kind of express what we want the options to be based on, again, the history here with the district, and then that's how we get this final product of some letters in green, some letters in red, and then we present that to the board. The board gets this first reading. You'll have this time about a month to review, and then we'll come back to it in June and then vote on whether or not we want to adopt or not. That gives you time then, if you have questions outside of being, oh, I didn't think about that, I'd like more information, or it gives me time to go find the answer to Liz's question. If I get that before June, I'll probably send it in an update just so you don't have to wait till that night to hear it. So that's the process. Neola sent somebody out to help walk us through those policy suggestions.
Okay, no, that's good insight. The other thing that I saw in here is there's additional language, instruction shall be organized around grade spans 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, shall address content that is appropriate to each span as detailed in AG 2418 and aligned with Michigan Health Education Standard Guidelines. And then if you move to the next page, there's language that teachers providing instruction at the secondary level, grades 6 through 12, must hold appropriate endorsements as specified by Michigan statute and Michigan Department of Education. So what about those, the sexual education for grades 3 through 5?
They don't have any specific, so K to 5, you're certified for all subjects. In middle school, we typically have health teachers who are certified to teach health provided. I don't know what other schools do, but we have a health teacher do that. But in grades 3 through 5, we've always had pizza and puberty party is basically what they call it. And then we have a male teacher who talks to certain folks, to the boys. We have female teachers who talks to the girls. And so those are, usually our PE teacher does the male conversation, and one of our classroom teachers does the young lady conversation.
And they don't require endorsements?
No, K to 5, you can teach all subjects in the state of Michigan.
And that's no different than our current position with it, it's just now we're sort of prescriptive and it's going to be.
The reason I think
more
they're,
policies.
I'm sorry, I think the reason they're prescriptive with it is because there is law, it's not just sex ed, you cannot teach sex ed if you don't want to, right? Like our sex ed advisory board could say, we don't want to teach sex ed anymore. But there are certain things that you have to teach. You have to teach about sexually transmitted diseases in each one of those grade bands. So somewhere 3 through 5, you have to talk about certain diseases, you have to talk about things like that. So you can eliminate the sex ed part of it, but you cannot eliminate all of the things that fall under this. So that's why they divide it up by band. It really talks about they have to have it in this grade level, they have to have it in this grade level, and they have to have it in that grade level.
So currently no endorsement required, there's no endorsement required for
3 through 5, no, it's all subjects. Middle school and high school, we use certified health teachers.
Okay. Then the last thing, what is, I think it's second to the last paragraph. So the language that we're removing is each person who provides instruction to K-12 students in accordance with the policy shall receive training based on district-approved standards in accordance with the training requirements of the Michigan Department of Education and Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So that's what we removed, and we're replacing it with teachers providing instruction at the secondary level, 6 through 12, must hold appropriate endorsements as specified by Michigan statute and Michigan Department of Education. Instruction in health and sex education shall comply with the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act and all applicable laws, including parent opt-out provisions. So I'm wondering, there was a new curriculum adopted in 2025 by Michigan Department of Education, created some controversy. What is the impact for us, if any, related specifically to that, in removing the current language, which I like, receive training based on district-approved standards? I like that. Moving to more of reduction in local influence, control. So is that what this is?
No, because again, if you read the part that's struck out, it says that they shall receive training based on district-approved standards, but in accordance with training requirements of the Michigan Department of Education. So they always had to be trained, they always had to be certified to teach. They just reworded at the beginning, but it's still basically the same thing. You have to have your Michigan certification, and again, it does not take away the district-approved standards. You have to follow the state standards. So when we talk about standards, you have to follow the state standards, but the state standards are different than the curriculum recommendations that you're talking about that they just approved last year. We don't have to teach any of that. Again, your sex ed advisory board, which is local, still has the authority to decide what you're going to offer and what you're not going to offer, as long as it falls within those standards. So this does not take any authority away from districts. It's simply new language wording of basically the same thing, that you must have a Michigan endorsed certified teacher teach the 6 through 12 grade.
What is the title of the curriculum that was passed in 2025? Do you have that, or can you
I have no idea, I'm sure it's the Michigan Sex Ed curriculum, I could look,
Well, I think Elliot Larson speaks specifically to sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, trans species maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. So, I'm just curious if we adopt that, if we are committing ourselves to follow, or if we open ourselves to a legal requirement to teach those things. And Elliot Larson is, to your point, state law. I don't know what the, federal law, where that stands. We had all the issues with Title IX a couple years back. So I'd really like to dig into that and understand that better and make sure that if we do move toward this, that we're going forward.
well, the Elliott Larson Act is state law, and we have to follow it. So you can remove that language, but we still have to follow the law.
Yes, of course, but I don't know that we need to build curriculum around it.
I think it just says that it'll comply with, but there's nothing in our current sex ed curriculum, I mean, Liz, you might know it better than I do, but there's nothing in there that speaks to the Elliott Larson Act, and no change to that curriculum will happen unless it goes through this curriculum.
But earlier in the policy, we're removing some of that responsibility or ability, to your point, from the local, So I'd just really like to understand the impact of this a little bit better. I personally like the language responsible and effective method of preventing unplanned or out of wedlock pregnancy and sexually transmitted disease and this positive lifestyle for unmarried young people. I like that in the board policies, and what they replace it with just seems pretty legalistic. So
That's currently the curriculum, is what that follows. So even, we can change or whatever, and you can do it, but even if we change language here, it would not change curriculum unless we go through that sex ed advisory board and do it. But that is currently the curriculum, so that is the.
unless we remove that ability from
Well,
the board.
I don't,
From
so
the community.
I think that is saying, so that one is saying additional program goals, so I think it would say the same, would be like above and beyond, so, which is why I had asked him to kind of check into it, to make it. So it would still stay, I don't think even if this line right here that I'm looking at stays crossed out, it wouldn't prevent them from setting curriculum. I just, if they had additional goals outside of what the Michigan standards say that you have to teach, like this is the bare minimum, you're gonna have sex education, here's your 10 things that you have to teach on. If we wanna have 14 things we wanna teach on, and it passes and it's still within law, I don't want to limit us to not teach on extra things if the committee would want to. That would be my concern with that being struck out, not necessarily that it would change anything we currently do. From what I think I'm doing.
Right, I just want to be clear and well informed that we're not removing the ability of the local community to set the curriculum for sexual education, removing the ability, that influence, and then moving toward more of the curriculum that's endorsed by the state, and I think there's quite a bit of lobbying for that to be the standard of all schools, that curriculum, so.
Ironically, the way I read that first sentence of this was asking about additional program goals and objectives may be established that are not contrary to Michigan law. Meaning you can have programs and objectives as long as they don't conflict with the law.
Right.
That's the way you're read.
Right.
Now they're taking that out, which makes me think you can add objectives and goals that have nothing to do with the law. like, it's almost like when I read it, they're removing a barrier from you. You used to have to follow the law, now it sounds like you don't have to.
Yeah, the
So that's
interpretation is
right.
off, like I can read it a couple different ways. So-
Yeah. So I'll ask about it, find out what the intent was there.
Yeah,
I'll have to-
yeah, that would be good, and that's kind of why I asked, you know, the context that we received these, how much conversation and, you know, how much we can influence the changes and what that looks like, for you, and now we have a month to really collect that information, so. And I'm curious if there's anything that is, required in here, that we sort of have to change what we currently have. So, that's it.
I will follow. So 3110, this is a revision that I am requesting. This is not from Neola. This has to do with tutoring. We often get asked about tutoring. It's one of those things that it sounds, you know, why not? Why wouldn't you on the surface? But it really can leave the staff vulnerable, students vulnerable, district vulnerable, and so I'm hoping by changing some of the language here, and I sent this to Neola and asked them to review it with the attorneys. Just would like to change it where it talks about the provision of any private lessons or services, whether for a fee or free of charge, because I think just saying if it's for a fee, I think people can work around that, you know, hard to prove there is a fee or not a fee. So I think whether it's a fee or not a fee, it should be covered. And then, if you read down under B, it talks about, so at first, the part at the top talks about you can't have tutoring in these situations. But then down at the bottom, it says, in B, should exceptions to this policy be necessary, all such exceptions will be made known to the employee supervisor and will be discussed or disclosed to the superintendent before entering them. Well, that doesn't give us any control. That just means they have to tell us they're going to do it, but it doesn't say whether or not we can limit their ability to do that. And so I would like to change the wording so that it must be approved by their supervisor and authorized by the superintendent before proceeding. Now, what are my concerns? So some of my concern is giving private lessons over the summer. We have, we have a lot of band and choir students who would love to get lessons from their teacher. They would like to do those over the summer. They'd like to use our facility because often the instruments are here, there's piano in the choir room. My concern is giving authority to a teacher to be in the building alone as the only adult, because we don't have adults in every building in the summer. So being alone in the building with a student makes me nervous. Makes me nervous for the student, makes me nervous for the teacher, makes me nervous for the district. So I'd like to have some control over that. As a way of example, to show that I don't want to just be anti-tutoring, my recommendation to our music department is if you're going to offer tutoring, then every teacher should have tutoring at the same time, same block, and in the same location. So if the choir teacher wants to give lessons from 10 to noon on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the band teacher's there from 10 to noon on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we have multiple adults in the building. Just things like that. I think there are ways that we can make this safe for everybody, but still allow it to happen. The other thing we have to be mindful of is there is language in our policy that talks about using school facilities for private enterprise. So do we allow a basketball coach to come in and use our gym and charge kids $50 an hour to give private basketball lessons? I don't think that's the intent of making our facilities available to the community. If it is, then we should talk about that, but I think we want to have some control over that. And you do that by making sure that we get to determine when those lessons take place. In the case of athletic private lessons, the thing that makes me the most nervous is basketball coach gives shooting lessons to Josh, and Josh comes back next year, guess what? He's playing 38 or 40 minutes in every game. Well, that sure, maybe he earned it, maybe he deserves it, but there's an awful strong look of impropriety there. So I think you gotta have guardrails in place to protect everybody, and this is part of that guardrail. given the authority back. If you want to do this, you need to get approval by your supervisor and the superintendent. So that's what that means. The next one is 312009. They want to remove that. Again, they've taken a couple of volunteer policies and they just consolidated, moved it to a different part of the policy handbook, so we'll talk about that later, but just want to remove the one on volunteers there. So then 3231 is the second one I'm asking for some more clarity on. This talks about under F, staff members may not accept fees for tutoring, private lessons, or other activities related to their professional duties for students currently enrolled in one or more of their classes on their caseload. And then I would also like to include or player in the sport they coach without prior written administrative permission and authorization. Again, I don't want to eliminate this because we only have a couple of people who teach how to play a saxophone or a tuba that live in Allendale. So you don't want to say nobody can teach or tutor a kid that they teach, because that might be the perfect person to tutor them. But we want to make sure they're guardrails. The other thing on this is that when we talk about teachers tutoring their own students, well, let's say somebody had their student in Mr. Cooper's second grade class, and then they're going to hire me to tutor over the summer. I don't think that's a very good look, because I think I should have, whatever that kid didn't learn during the year, I as the classroom teacher was responsible for getting them to the next grade level. So I feel like it's kind of a bad look to say I want the classroom teacher to tutor on something they're supposed to be doing for free. So maybe it would be better if Mrs. DeYoung did the tutoring of the students from my class. It's a different voice, it's the same curriculum. I just think it eliminates a lot of what could look like impropriety to me, or, I just think it's better for the district to have that safeguard in place. But again, I don't want to just say that you can never tutor your own child, because you can. There's maybe a good reason why Mr. Broom should be tutoring the tuba player. So, yeah, just more safeguard for the district, I think. 412009 is another volunteer policy they want to eliminate. So they're taking it out of professional staff, they're taking it out of support staff, because those are, again, staff sections of the policy handbook. In reality, we're talking about volunteers who are not staff members. It should be in a different section. So it makes sense to get volunteer language out of those sections. 4210 is the staff ethics. That's 3210 all over again. Like I said, they moved one up, they moved one down. So now this policy will appear 3 times in the policy manual. Policy 5136, wireless communication devices. So this is a policy that came about. It's a replacement policy because of the changes about cell phones. This is one that I looked at with administrators. It's pretty straightforward. Just kind of talks about when cell phones can be used and when they shouldn't be used. I don't really like the fact that they keep calling them WCDs. It seems a little too military to me. I don't really like that. I mean, I keep them in the WMD, so WCDs doesn't fit well, but that's what they're calling them, WCDs. It's a pretty stern term for a cell phone. Policy 5336, this has to do with care of students with diabetes. Again, this is one that I reviewed with healthcare professionals. This is totally in line with what we currently do. This was just some updates, probably based on somebody's legislation or somebody's court case is usually what happens, and then it promotes this change in language. But it does fit with what we're currently doing, and so it would be my recommendation to take that. 6320, this is required changes in the law. They update this just about every year. It has to do with using state and federal funds to purchase things, and it's got the code, the school code that we have to follow when making purchases. it's really required language, so I would recommend we take this language as well. And then 6325, more of the same, federal grant funds use. I think the big change here is every year they kind of update the purchase thresholds for making purchases with state and federal funds. So now micro purchases are those that go up to $15,000, and then the next purchase threshold is $31,321. Again, and then major contracts, the threshold is up to $350,000 now. So again, that's just language that we're given that we have to follow. So we recommend we take those changes so we can continue to use state and federal funds. 812009, that's the two removed policies for volunteers. So now our volunteer policy will show up in the 8,000s section. And this has to do, there's a lot of things about guests and people visiting the school, things like that. So pretty much the same as the two that we removed. We're just moving it to the 8,000 section.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Does this apply to any of our, like, club type sports too? Is that,
Or what?
like, club-based sports that are not technically school sponsored or anything, like, it doesn't apply, right?
Well, it depends. So like if you talk about, when I think of club, I think of like Girls on the Run. They have to go through and do the volunteer.
Like we have stop, there's like stop, in middle school they have stop, like those aren't stop, it used to be like volleyball boys was a club because in high school now it's an official sport, but like
Right.
the junior high has softball that is not an official sport, so that's a club.
Right, and they don't have to follow our policy because it's not a school sponsored activity. 8402, emergency operations plan. The only thing they added here, really, other than that first word, they didn't like the, I know later than, because obviously that date has passed, so they took that out and then put in the word for. But then they added letter N, that we have to have a protocol for when students are permitted to use their wireless communication devices during an emergency. So that's the change to that. And then 8655, this is one that I talked to Ryan Harper about. It's the specialized transportation for students with IEPs. His comment to me is every single thing in here is law related. Like we are required to do every single thing in here. Why do you need a policy? I don't know either. It must be somebody got jammed up on it sometime, or maybe some district wasn't following the policy or following the law. But from his perspective, and the one who writes all the IEPs for us, or reviews the IEPs for us, he's very comfortable with this language and thinks that, because it says we're following the law, it's not a bad policy to have. Now, I do have one, and I apologize for a little bit of a sneak on me here, but this literally just came up today. There's one more policy, and because this is the first reading, I feel it's okay to add it, because we didn't have any specific policies we were going to look at, per se. We had a McKinney-Vento audit. McKinney-Vento is that federal policy that covers our homeless students. And actually the audit went very, very well. Bree Blanksma is our homeless liaison, and she is phenomenal. She just does a great job identifying students who are, have that homeless category and who need the support, and making sure they get the supports. But there were 3 or 4 things in the audit that they suggested we take a look at. And one of them was we didn't have any policy that talked about offering partial credit for students. So a kid moves in the middle of a semester, how do you offer them partial credit? And that's what you see in bold. Now, where that language came from, interestingly, is Mr. Vanderlaan went and did some research for us. And Neola clients in the state of Florida have that line in their policy. Neola clients in Michigan do not have that language in their policy. So I've reached out to Neola and said, hey, why do they have and we don't? This is, McKinney-Vento's federal. The homeless stuff is federal. Why is this not in our policy? I honestly can't think of a good reason except that maybe with our Michigan Merit curriculum, which is very prescriptive about credits and what you need to graduate, maybe they didn't want us to have it in the state of Michigan, I don't know. But I wanted you to see it now. I'm gonna work on getting some clarification from Neola, but if there's no good reason why we don't have that, I would suggest we put that in our policy because that's what the audit says is missing from our board policy. Any questions on that one? Okay. And that is that for policy. My agenda. Next up is the bullying and discipline report. I always ask if there's anything that stood out to you. I'll say a couple of things that stood out to me. While it sounds like the referrals at the ECC are up a little bit, and at the high school they were up a little bit, the great news was that the referrals were down at Evergreen, Oakwood, and the middle school. So that was good to see. Positive, I'd like to hope that has to do with our positive behavior supports that we're working on. And then the other thing that I noticed, and it's a conversation I'll have with Mr. Smolin and with our behavior coach, Mrs. Colton. Mr. Smolin identified that if you looked at the data, the young boys are hugely, more responsible for the discipline referrals than our young ladies. I meant to write it down, I didn't, but I think it's like, I want to say it's like almost 200 of the referrals were for boys and about 50.
252 versus 52.
Yeah, 252 for the boys and 52 for the girls. Thank you. So that to me is something to look at. What are we doing? What's going on? Do we need to set up some different playground procedures, things like that? But that is a huge disparity because that certainly doesn't match the number of students we have of each gender. So why is one that prominently being referred? Don't know the answer. I guess I haven't been a young boy at 5 at myself one time. I guess I know why, but that seems like a pretty big difference. But I don't know if anything else stood out for anyone in the report. Like I said, it was good to see that a couple of the buildings went down. Potential bond proposal update. So again, we've got a committee that's been working on this with Fannie and Howie. They've talked to a lot of the stakeholders. They've done a lot of the facility assessments. They've started to go through and narrow things down. Tomorrow is a big meeting for the bond committee. They're going to be putting price tags to things and then really trying to hone in on what, if there is a proposal that makes sense for us. That would be our next big step. They've got people from there, they're connected with that are doing phone surveys. Those will really start to ramp up here to get community feedback, and I think that would be critical. Then what happens next is that on the 28th, we'll meet again. We'll take a look at that community feedback as a committee. We'll really try to narrow down what the focus of that proposal might look like. I would just say that in my opinion, it's starting to look like it might be more than one ask, like they might divide it up and say, okay, here's the building needs, we really need this, we've got to fix roofs, boilers, parking lots, whatever, maybe a couple of the expansion pieces. Here's what we like around athletics, and then, make some. So I think it's headed towards more than one question. But then after that meeting on the 28th, at our June, we'll take that proposal to Treasury to make sure that it's legit, because they have to crunch the numbers and, okay, you can expand that much, and okay, these costs look like they're in the So if the Treasury on June sixth says this is okay and gets their approval, then this board has to decide on June eighth. You get the next decision on whether or not we move forward. So June eighth, if you can be here, because that will be a big one. There's a lot going on June eighth. Budget stuff, end of year stuff, a lot of stuff. So, but that's where we're at with the bond proposal. And I don't know, Brandon or Liz or Kevin, is there anything else I'm missing on that, or?
I can say that I've been really impressed with, Fannie Hound.
Is that right?
Yeah, they have done, just a spectacular job, going through the buildings, doing need-based assessments. I've been really really impressed with what they've presented, the way that it's been presented, so, it's been a really good experience, and they're doing a great job. One of the things that I see that we're trending for and I'm not supportive of, and you guys will see it if that makes it to the board, is the expansion of the ECC, which I struggle with because there's a circumstance where we have no influence over the curriculum, like we do with our kindergarten students. The assessment makes perfect sense for the number of students that we have in that program. I'm just not sold on that piece of it yet. So, but great experience overall. Good public participation. For those who attend, they're really engaged and yeah, it's been a good experience. Fannie and Howard is doing just a phenomenal job. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think they've done their due diligence, they're very engaging. They'll answer any questions, they're not really afraid to take any questions, so, yeah, they've done a good job. Yeah, I think whoever kind of meets the road here in the next two meetings, we'll see what it looks like. A lot of information gathering, kind of decide where we're going, a direction after the next two meetings.
Okay. Next up, update on, I'm calling it the non-transport zone, because it's the first thing that popped in my head, and I kind of liked it, so I'm sticking with it for now, but, formerly we talked about a walk zone. But as we looked at what made the most sense, what was most logical for this, it would run from 68th Avenue? Yeah, from Rivers Avenue Street. 68th Avenue to 78th Avenue, and from Lake Michigan Drive to Pierce Road. That's a big section. It'd be hard pressed to tell somebody living off 78th Street going to the high school that you're in a walk zone, because that's a pretty hefty walk. Although, I will say we haven't walked that far in high school. Uphill, both ways.
In the snow.
I'm sorry. Should have editorialized. But that's what we're looking at for a non-transport zone. It would impact about 90 elementary students, which would be a run and a half, so 1.5 bus runs. And then about 45 secondary students, which would be about 1 bus run. And so if someone were to ask, is there cost savings there? Yes. I think each bus run probably costs us $25,000 to $30,000 a year. So there could be some cost savings there. Could we, instead of just eliminating a route altogether, could we take all the routes we currently have and, as a wise man said to me, not fill those buses to 105% capacity? Because he's right. We have got every bus pretty much at capacity. And what's nice about doing that is, back in the day, if we had to cancel a route, we didn't cancel it. What typically happened was you had 8 empty seats on this bus, and 8 on that bus, and 7 on that bus. And so what the drivers would do with the transportation director is they'd say, oh, I'll go get those 2 streets, I'll go pick up those 3 streets. And you were able to still get everybody to school in that emergency by just picking up those extra kids. So maybe there's some logic to putting in a non-transport zone just so that we can have a little bit of relief from the overcrowding on the buses. There's nothing to suggest we're going to have more drivers next year, even though we're working hard to recruit. I have looked at the wage scales. If anybody asks you about that, we pay less than some, we pay more than some. And the ones we're paying less than, we're paying 20 cents an hour less, 40 cents an hour. It's not like somebody's beating us by $2 an hour for our drivers. The other thing is, even some of those districts that are paying more than us to start, our drivers catch up to that quickly because we have a scale that builds them up. And so, 5 years in, 7 years in, 10 years in, they could be making as much or more than some of these other districts. So it's really hard to compare because every district's transportation contract is a little bit different. But generally speaking, we are competitive there, and we'll look at ways to continue to recruit, maybe put in some bonus systems for, even more, attracting more. One of the things we talked about doing is most places, if you train to be a bus driver, until you're a bus driver, you don't get paid. Well, we've talked about paying people to get trained. Now, you run the risk that I train you to be a bus driver, you go to Spring Lake. But it's probably a risk we're taking, and so we're looking at things like that. So we're looking at a lot of ways to try to recruit more drivers. We've got those vans, that's definitely eased some of the pressure on our drivers. It's helped with the sports routes at the end of the day. So pretty excited about that, but right now where we stand is the idea of a non-transport zone, 68th to 78th, Lake Mission Drive to Pierce, and then, like I said, we'll have to decide later if we do that, do we want to eliminate a route for the cost savings, or do we want to keep, that number of drivers to alleviate some of the crowding on the buses. But I want to give you that first look now, and I'll be coming back to you with more information probably in June.
For the bus drivers, is there any incentive? I know you can't tell them not to take days off, but incentive for not missing days?
Yeah, there's incentive in there. It doesn't seem to.
I'm just curious, I'm like, would that eliminate, a couple?
No, there is an incentive there for not using sick leave.
Is there also on that, like incentive to train them, like a non-compete, like you do this, you can't go elsewhere for like
Yeah,
at least a year or two, a non-compete clause, as we call it?
We really haven't started doing that yet, so I don't know. We'll have to take a look at that. I agree. Drivers typically don't go too far from their community. So I think if somebody wanted to train to be an Allendale driver, they'd stay in Allendale. One of the things we're looking at, so we started this year with our bus monitors and our sub drivers. If you drove for us 10 days, 10 days as a sub, you get a $100 bonus. Well, if you take that $100 and you divide it out over the number of hours you actually drove, it's $1.50 an hour difference. And so I'd probably look at doing something like that with our drivers. You get credit for every day that you drive, and when you reach a certain threshold, boom, here's a bonus. Meet at that threshold, boom, here's another small bonus. So, because I don't want to, if somebody does get the flu and they're out for 3 days, I don't want them to miss out. That's the problem with those year-end bonuses. You didn't take any sick days, you get the bonus. Well, what if I really was sick for 3 days? Well, now I'm disqualified for it. But if you do like 10 days, you get the bonus, and I go 8 days, then I'm sick for 2 days, then I work 2 days, well, there's my 10 days. So I think there's some good things we can do to attract the drivers and show them we appreciate them. And that is all I have.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cooper. Tanya? All right, yeah. More comments, we'll start with Tanya. All right. And?
Nothing. Although, thanks for the Spain update, that was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wonderful opportunity, and, love the pictures, and yeah, that was very cool.
Thank you, ma'am. Josh?
I've already said it. I'm good.
Me either.
All right, President's comments. I don't have much. Getting to the end of the year again, it's hard to believe. Again, thank you to our staff, our teachers, our administration. I think job here, and I thank you all for your hard work and fellow board members.
Kevin? June?
Yeah. June work session was, I believe, the 23rd.
22nd.
I'd like to move that to the 15th. I will be out of town. There's a few things we have to take care of, and I was wondering if there's any opposition to moving that to the 15th.
I don't have opposition, but I don't know that I'll be here, right?
One or the other. On the action items, can I have a motion to approve that intermediate school district budget?
Motion to approve the OAISD 26-27 budget for Ottawa Area Intermediate School District General Fund Budget Resolution as presented.
Support.
Motion by Pam, support by Brandon. Dr. Cooper.
Yeah, we're required by law, all the LEAs within an ISD are required to approve their budget between May 1st and June 1st, and so this is our opportunity to do that.
Any of these questions or discussion about the proposed budget?
I guess, I'm sorry, I would just say one thing. I do think the ISD has made a very strong effort to increase CTE opportunities for kids. If you've seen any of the construction they're doing out there, it's pretty amazing what they've done. So while I don't know all the ins and outs of their budget, I do think they're really focused on creating opportunities for students. So I think that's a good thing. Sorry.
Yeah, I think, obviously, I could probably go through anything, not stuff out here and there, but I think, they have been a big proponent of us getting Mira, has helped us out with quite a bit of funding for that. So, like I said, I think we could cut stuff here and there, but I think they have supported Elm to the school district.
Do you know, so speaking to, I know, there is some information public on this, like through their page, if anybody would want to get it. It's tough, like we get a very detailed budget overview, but I did have one question. Do we know what position they added? If they're adding HR positions, do we know what it was for by chance?
An HR position?
Yeah, it says like one of their major changes, and it gives a change, and it was a position added for the new year. I'm just curious if we know.
You know about an HR position already?
It was, an assistant, it was, it's an assistant to Marcy, I believe.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's like an
it's
assistant
assistant
HR person.
Yeah, and I can't recall his name off the top of my head, it'll come to me.
I wouldn't remember it if you told me.
Yeah.
I was just kidding.
No.
So we're good. Thank you.
A lot of investment in special education in the place, which is great.
Anything further? We have a roll call, please.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Harris. Yes. Holstead,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Tenbrink,
Yes.
Fairhill,
Yes.
The motion pass. I have a motion for the approval of the resolution scheduling for 2026.
I make a motion to approve the resolution scheduling 2026 truth in taxation budget hearing at 5:15 PM on June 8th as presented.
Support.
Motion by Liz, support by Tanya. Dr. Cooper.
Yep, all this is, we are required by law to set the date and time, so everybody knows when it is. So once we decide 5:15 on the 8th, so before the meeting on the 8th, please make sure you're at 5:15 for the Holly Show. You get to hear the budget proposal from Holly.
All right, any further discussion? Amy?
Harris.
Yes.
Holstead.
Yes.
Ramey.
Yes.
Tenbrink.
Yes.
Clerkell.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
The motion passed. Can I have a motion to go into closed session for the superintendent mid-year evaluation?
I will make a motion to move to closed session for superintendent mid-year evaluation update on AEA negotiations as presented.
Support.
Motion by Rose, support by Brandon.
Second.
And Brandon. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All same sign.